Oh, it feels so good to be sitting with spots again. I have indeed. A little bit of a wrong turn down into the drainage line just a little bit earlier, but we finally got into the right part of the drainage line to catch up with Hosana. And actually, the son of Mvula, who you've just seen with Tristan. And I'm so glad Tristan actually managed to catch up with... Oh, is it in Ghana? Oh. I'll have to check my notes, because it's always really interesting to know who is related to who. But Tristan actually having two... Oh, we actually have quite an interesting crossing of the giraffes across the Mara. That would be really fantastic to see. So we're going to stay with our spots, and you can join some other spots making that crossing, and we'll stay right with Hosana and give you more of an update. Oh, that does sound absolutely amazing, and probably something that is not seen very often, giraffes crossing the Mara River. Well, Hosana, I think, is having quite a deep snooze now. I think I've seen him twitching a little bit, suggesting he might actually be dreaming. But I'm wondering if the viewers can help me out. So I might have got it wrong. It sounds like possibly Tingana was this little boy's father. So maybe some of the viewers who have been watching can help me out with that one and just confirm that with me. That would be great. Hashtag Safari Live if you also know and you haven't been watching for very long. It'd be great to hear from you. Now, it looks like he has made a kill, and there's the tree just behind him actually looked the most plausible for having a carcass in, and I couldn't see anything in there, and I thought, oh, maybe he's finished it off. But then Sharp-Eyed Craig happened to notice the leg in the tree. Take it out on your screens there. It really was quite a good spot. It doesn't seem to be much left up there. It looks like he has eaten the majority of it. There's a few scraps on the ground, but he's actually managed to put it into an umbrella thorn by the looks of it, which can't really be that comfortable. But there you go. Now I wonder if he actually does what his brother or his half-brother did. Now some of you might remember in Djuma, which was Karula's 3rd litter, so Hosana is Karula's 5th litter. And in Djuma, you used to shift the carcasses around quite a lot and drop them out the tree. And we kind of thought, you know what, maybe he's just being messy and sort of just being a little bit of a brat. But actually, he carried that on into his adulthood, and I wonder if it's because he didn't like sitting in the tree and feeding. Perhaps he felt more comfortable feeding off the ground. Now, I don't know if we did have any of the call, people coming back with the call, but I can hear the same. Sounds like our signal dropped out a little bit. We are in quite a deep drainage line here with Hosana, a young male leopard. So I don't know if you heard me saying about the crested barb, it was the bird that was actually calling. But it has been calling a little bit while we've been sat here. Now, Hosana has actually rolled onto his back a couple of times and exposed his belly. And that's quite normal for a cat that's had quite a big meal. Now, you should be able to see his belly coming into shot now. So he has filled himself up on the impala. So that's going to be busy digesting, and that the process of digesting is going to be creating heat, and that's why mammals actually eat. So if you think about the cold and warm-blooded animals, so they're warm-blooded, they eat to stoke their furnace, if you like, and that produces the heat and that keeps us warm, whereas the cold-blooded mammals actually need to be warmed up by the sun so that they get to the right temperature so that they're able to digest their food. So we have different systems. So that's going to be creating a lot of heat in his belly and in his body. And the belly skin is usually quite thin compared to other places, so they roll onto the back, so it exposes their belly, so it can actually help to reduce the heat, and sometimes if there's a breeze, obviously that will help to keep them slightly cooler as well. But that looks like quite a nice, soft, sandy place just to chill out and allow that digestion to happen. Dear watcher, that is definitely one very sleepy cat. And I'm the same. If I've had a big lunch, I'm quite happy to go for a bit of siesta, I must admit. So hopefully if people can actually give me a hand and tell me who his father is. As I say, I thought it might have been Mvula, but it could be Tingana, so if anyone wants to help me out with that. As you all are aware, I love learning about who has actually been related to who, or who is related to who, and how everyone links together, because that for me increases the knowledge about the animal behaviour. Brilliant, thank you. So a lot of you are saying it's Tingana, so thank you very much, Craig, for pointing that out as well. So we weren't 100% sure, but thought we'd check with you guys as well, because you know the leopards so well, so it's always great to know. Now, I was actually trying to see if there is anything that he shares with his other siblings, and we're talking about the necklace around the neck, and leopard spots are unique to each cat, and that's how we can identify them. But there will be characteristics or traits that leopards can share. So the collar can be quite a normal characteristic that you find on leopards. Some leopards actually have quite a thick necklace. Some leopards may have a broken up necklace. Some might not quite have a necklace at all, but that is one of the features that you often find on leopard. And spots around the eyes as well. And quite often I've actually seen leopards that are related may have similar features as well. So with Karula, she had the wow across her forehead, and that seems to have been passed down to Hosana's sister. And I've noticed one of the litter mates from the fourth litter seem to share the Y at the core of the eye, like Mishu, the son from the third litter. So Roshni actually asking quite an interesting question about the genetics of the leopards, and can you actually confirm the male? Now, when we say the father of the cubs, it's really who we've seen mating with the females, if we're lucky enough to catch that, or if the male has been in the area. But unless you've actually been with them throughout the whole period of time, it is quite difficult to know for sure. The only sort of certainty you can have is the cubs with the mother, so that's the really certain one. So the father is a little bit more of the guesswork. And interestingly, I think they are making a study on the leopards in the Sabi Sands because everybody knows the history of the cats, and I think they are looking into seeing if they can actually identify the males with the DNA and the father, the parentage with the DNA. So that's going to be really fascinating to read about once the research is actually done, because the process of mating actually can occur over several days, and during that time it is possible, if a female isn't followed closely enough by a male, or if another male comes in and actually fights for the right to mate, it could be that the male who she's with could be actually chased off, or she might give him the slip and actually mate with another male. So it is possible they could have multiple partners. So as I say, you do have to take it with a bit of pinch of salt about the males. It's not clear cut who is the father, it's just who we believe is the father, all based on, as I say, who we've seen them with or who the male is in the area. And generally speaking, the females do seem to have a preference as well. So back when I was guiding a few years ago, Yambidi Ordan seemed to be the big male in the area. He seemed to be the strong male, and he seemed to be the mate of choice for Karula. And then Mvula in those days was actually on the eastern boundary, a Chitwa line. Didn't really go past Gwari Pan, but apparently she did, or she was seen mating with him, and it's possible her fourth litter came from the mating with Mvula. And now Mvula's been chased off by Tingana. Hi, Lauren. Welcome on board this morning, asking if Karula was unusual raising so many cubs, or have other leopards raised as many cubs as Karula. And I'm sure they have. And that's one of the great things about meeting other guides and hearing all the other stories. And I think a lot of lodges have blogs now, so you're able to actually follow the progress of other leopards. But for me, as I say, what was amazing about Karula is that she seemed to have success. Now, obviously, we're not sure what happens when, in the first few weeks of Karula actually giving birth to cubs, because the cubs, when they're born, they're tiny, they're like this, and they're so vulnerable, they're blind, they're helpless, so she'll actually leave them in a den, and when she goes off to hunt, because obviously she needs to keep the milk flowing, so she needs to be in tip-top condition, so she'll leave the cubs in a den. They could be exposed to anything. If there's wild dogs around, snakes around, even something small as like a jackal could actually take a leopard cub. So in those very early weeks, it's very hard to know if she's actually given birth to more cubs than what you actually see once they come out of the den, and you get to see them a little bit more often. So when they get to about 3 months old, you see them starting to climb trees, and you get a lot more visuals of them. So we're kind of taking it from those sightings, but they have been very successful, and we only really know of one litter that she lost due to a hyena coming in, and I think she was in the process of moving those cubs, and the hyena came and found her and actually took those cubs, and that was obviously very, very upsetting. But it is quite natural for predators to lose litters in that way. But what was amazing was that Karula didn't seem to have that up until that point, and the fact that she had five litters making it through to adulthood was just really quite an accolade to her. As I say, she really was quite an amazing leopard. But even her mother, Safari, she had one eye for many years, and she went on until she was 19 years old, and I think probably had multiple cubs as well. So I think it's strong genes in the family as well. So Hosana hopefully will pass on those genes, as will his sister. Cheeky Beth, I'm hoping I'm getting your name right. Welcome on board this morning. Cheeky Beth asking if females have a good idea who the strong males are. And they're going to be looking for the males who have the loudest roar, and that will actually generally be the territory holder in that area. So showing off how strong they are. So they'll actually scratch on trees, and the highest scratches on the trees shows how tall they are. So they're quite a visual predator. So they'll be looking for those signs. So they'll actually be able to see for themselves as well and hear for themselves. So you generally get a territorial male who will defend an area, and that will generally overlap with a number of females. So it's thought in the Sabi Sands, the males hold maybe about a 6,000 hectare territory. Females, it seems to be an average of about 2,000, which is quite small really for leopards. So there's quite a high density of leopards, but there's also quite a high density of food as well, which seems to be able to support them. So within that male's territory, if he's on the ball, he will actually check to see if females are in estrus, and obviously if he picks one up, then he'll actually trail her and find her. And as I say, if she's willing to mate, then she will allow him to mate with her. And the older males obviously tend to be larger, and if they're older and they're larger, they've survived. So of course they've got to have strong genes to have survived that long. So they might, even if a young male approaches, it's not likely they'll want to mate with them. just because obviously they don't know if they are going to be passing on good genes or not. So showing the dominance and showing how strong they are really does help for the female to choose them. The guinea fowl have been calling actually just over the ridge at the back, but they've actually quietened down quite a lot now. Hi, Safari Dean, asking me what I think of Hosana's size and what the biggest leopard that I've seen. Well, the leopards in the place where I was doing my research in Leidenberg generally were much larger than the leopards here in the Sabi Sands, and that could be because they have to deal with much cooler temperatures. Apparently it's the Bergman's rule, so in colder temperatures the animals are larger because they need to conserve heat, so the larger you are, the less surface area you have to lose heat. Whereas in somewhere quite warm like this, you can afford to be a little bit smaller and make sure that your surface area is large enough that you can actually expel heat, which is obviously very important to try and keep cool. So the cats there, I think, were reaching maybe 80-85 kilos, and certainly the big male that I saw there, Hosana is a little bit small, but he's not very old. I'm sure the kids can help me out for when he was actually born. I'm thinking he's about 18 months old, but I've been able to correct